Her hands trembled slightly as the cold gel touched her belly. The ultrasound wand moved slowly across her skin while Craig sat next to her, squeezing her hand. They had just finished telling the doctor their family history, that they were both identical twins, and that their twin siblings had married each other too. The doctor nodded, barely looking up from the screen. Then she stopped moving the wand. Her face changed. She leaned closer to the monitor, squinting at something. Craig and Diane exchanged a quick glance. The room went quiet. Then the doctor turned to face them, and the look in her eyes was something between disbelief and amusement. "You're not going to believe this," she said softly. "But before we get into what happened next, take a second to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the bell. It only takes a moment, but it helps us share these incredible stories with more people just like you." Darlene and Diane Nettemeyer came into this world the same way they would do everything else in life, together. Born on August 16, 1970, in a small hospital in Illinois, Darlene arrived first, 45 minutes before her sister. But here's the thing, their parents had no idea Diane was coming. She was the surprise baby, the one nobody planned for. And from that very first moment, the two of them were inseparable. They shared everything growing up, friends, clothes, hobbies, even their taste in food and margaritas. Their mom Sharon, their dad Dave, and their older sister Tina could somehow always tell them apart, but nobody else could. Teachers struggled with it for years. Strangers stared. And when Darlene got a job as a legal secretary at a firm in Illinois, Diane ended up working at the exact same company. Same job title, different floor. One day, Diane overheard a colleague whispering to her boss, "Did a new person start who looks just like Diane? Because I just saw a girl in the lift who looks the spit of her." Diane had to stifle a laugh. But even though they were practically mirrors of each other, the sisters weren't exactly the same in every way. Darlene loved the idea of being a twin. She always imagined she'd have twins of her own someday because she loved the bond so much. Diane, on the other hand, hated being constantly compared. She told her mom at age 8, "No more matching dresses." Still, despite those small differences, the bond between them was unbreakable. They had never spent more than a single week apart in their entire lives. Not once. When it came to dating, though, things got a little tricky. Both sisters were always drawn to dark-haired men. They never fought over the same guy, but some of their boyfriends resented just how close the two of them were. No man wanted to compete with a twin sister who was basically a second half. Years passed, relationships came and went, and nothing ever really stuck. Until August of 1998. The sisters were 27 years old when they decided to attend the annual Twins Day Festival in Twinsburg, Ohio. They showed up in matching t-shirts and jeans, blending in for once instead of standing out. As they sat in the hotel bar that evening, Diane turned to Darlene and said something she'd been thinking all day. "Being surrounded by other twins is the only time we don't stick out." Darlene smiled, but then her eyes drifted across the room, and that's when she locked eyes with a tall, dark-haired man. His name was Mark Sanders. He had a great sense of humor, a warm smile, and he immediately told them he was also a twin. But there was a problem. His identical twin brother Craig was back in the hotel room working. Mark panicked a little. He was afraid the sisters would think he was some random guy crashing the twin party. He needed to prove he actually had a double somewhere, so he ran off to go get him. When Craig walked in, something shifted. Diane noticed him right away. She thought he was the better-looking one, even though they were identical. Darlene, meanwhile, had already clicked with Mark. There was something about his personality, his humor, that just pulled her in. Later, on the drive home, Craig turned to Mark and asked the question that had been on both their minds. "Which twin do you like more?" Mark said, "The one I was sitting next to at lunch." Craig's heart nearly stopped. Then Mark said her name, Darlene. Craig exhaled. "Great," he said, "because I like Diane." He later admitted he had been terrified Mark was going to say Diane's name instead. From there, the four of them started dating. Double dates, vacations as a foursome, long-distance phone calls that stretched late into the night with the brothers in Houston, Texas, where they worked as web diners for the Houston Astros baseball team, and the sisters back in Illinois at their legal secretary jobs. It was complicated, but none of them wanted to let go. On one of their early double dates, a waiter looked from Diane to Darlene. Then he noticed their identical dates sitting across the table. The shock hit him so hard he nearly dropped his drinks tray. When they went out in public as a group of four, strangers didn't just do a double take, they froze. Some even asked to take photos. 7 months after they met, Craig and Mark planned something special. They whisked the sisters off on a vacation to Florida. On the second night, they arranged a fancy dinner at the hotel, but told the sisters to meet them in a room downstairs first. Darlene and Diane got dressed up and walked in, not sure what to expect. In the middle of the room sat a laptop, open on a table. Curious, the sisters went over to look, and what they saw on the screen made them gasp. It was a web page, a proposal, 2 questions, 2 yes buttons. Their eyes filled with tears as they both clicked yes at the same time. The brothers had coordinated the whole thing. Craig later explained why. "We were worried. What happens if one proposes and the other one doesn't? Is her sister also being proposed to? So we decided we would do it at the same time." The engagement rings were cut from the same diamond. 2 rings from 1 stone. In November of 1999, they had their dream wedding, a double ceremony. Both brides wore the exact same dress. They had split the shopping down the middle, each trying on half the options. Diane joked on the Today Show if it didn't look good on her, it wasn't going to look good on me. And Darlene added that they had to pick something a little straighter so they could all fit down the aisle with their dad. Because that's exactly what happened. Their father, Dave, walked both daughters down the aisle at the same time, 1 on each arm, 2 identical brides, 2 identical grooms waiting at the altar. It was the kind of moment that felt almost too perfect to be real. After the wedding, both couples moved to Houston, Texas, and they didn't just move to the same city. They built 2 houses right next to each other, side by side, with an adjoining backyard. Diane later said, "I have never been separated from Darlene, so this was a perfect solution. We were always nipping around to each other's." Every morning they started the day with a walk together, family game nights, movie nights. Their lives were woven together in every possible way. But when it came time to start families, things didn't go as smoothly. Darlene was desperate to become a mom right away. Diane and Craig wanted to wait. But fate had other ideas. Diane discovered she was pregnant first, and the timing couldn't have been worse. Darlene had just suffered a miscarriage. The guilt hit Diane like a wave. "I felt so guilty," she later said, "because they had just lost their baby and we were having 2. 2! That's what the doctor had told her, and at first she and Craig didn't even believe it. Diane was lying on the scanning table, about to have her very first ultrasound. Craig sat beside her. They casually told the doctor their unusual family history, that they were identical twins, that their twin siblings had married each other. The doctor barely reacted at first. She just kept scanning. Then she stopped, looked at the screen, and said almost too casually, "Oh yeah, it's twins." Craig and Diane stared at her. They thought she was joking, but the doctor pointed at the screen and said, "No, come look, it's 2. And sure enough, there they were, 2 tiny heartbeats flickering on the monitor. Identical twin boys. The odds of having identical twins are about 3 in every 1,000 births, but the odds of an identical twin marrying another identical twin and then giving birth to identical twins? Millions to 1. Scientists still can't explain why identical twinning happens. There's no hereditary gene for it. It's a completely random, spontaneous split of a fertilized egg. And yet, somehow it happened to them. Brady and Colby Sanders were born in 2001, healthy, strong, and identical in every way. When Diane was 25 weeks along, Darlene had shared her own good news. She was pregnant again. This time, everything went smoothly. Darlene gave birth to a beautiful girl she named Reagan. 16 months later, she welcomed another daughter, Landry. And in time, Diane had a third son, Holden. 5 kids between the two families, all growing up next door to each other, playing in that shared backyard, going to the same elementary school, the same middle school, the same high school. And here's the part that makes this story unlike anything else. Genetically, those 5 children weren't just cousins. They were full biological siblings. Because both mothers shared identical DNA and both fathers shared identical DNA, the children inherited the same genetic makeup that siblings from the same 2 parents would. Cousins on paper, siblings in blood. The kids even admitted they sometimes mistook an aunt or uncle for one of their own parents, especially when looking at them from behind. And when the whole family of 9 went out in public together, people didn't just stare. They couldn't believe their eyes. The story made national headlines. They appeared on the Today Show, where Savannah Guthrie sat across from all 9 of them, shaking her head in amazement. They were featured on the Jeff Probst Show, ITV's This Morning in the UK, and in magazines around the world. Not everyone handled the attention the same way, though. Mark, ever the honest one, joked on camera, "I'm considered the evil twin of the 4 of us because sometimes there is an evil twin. I'm the one who gets a little tired of the story." But for Diane, the answer was simple. When asked what her favorite thing about being a twin was, she didn't hesitate. "You always have a best friend," she said. And Darlene, sitting right beside her, smiled and added, "Yes, you're my best friend. Always." If this story made you smile, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming true stories like this one. Thanks for watching.